Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Two Asian Blokes Podcast, a podcast where we talk about Asian pop culture, films, TV shows, comic books, anime, music, games, food, whatever we're feeling at the time, really. My name is Dan with a H, and with me, as always, my co-host Tavi. Hi, Tavi.
We brought back our regular guest.
Yes, excited to welcome back special friend of the show and our guest, Boon. Hi, Boon.
Hi, I'm back. I'm back. Thanks for having me again. Third episode.
Thank you for joining us.
After all these years, to be going back to where it all started. Yes. To the Matrix.
Boon is here to help us talk about K-pop, right? Gotcha. You thought you were here for the Matrix, but we're doing K-pop. Tricked you, subverting your expectations.
That was pretty bad, Dan.
Oh, sorry. Are we not? Okay. Yeah, all right, fine. We're talking about the Matrix, aren't we? I guess. If we have to.
I'm just noting an edit point here already.
Joke's on you. I'm going to edit this. I'm going to leave it in, Tom. I'm leaving it all in. All my terrible jokes. Yeah. All right, so Matrix Resurrections. I was saying before that probably the best chance of anybody actually getting some enjoyment out of this film is if you go into it pretty blind. So with that in mind, listeners, if you haven't watched it yet and you're planning to watch it, probably a good idea to stop listening to us talk about it and go watch it first. We are going to talk spoiler-free first, and then we'll let you know before we start spoiling it.
Well, we were saying that there's not really much to spoil in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, but I feel like the less you know about it going in, the better. Probably for the film's sake.
I think if you hadn't watched any previous Matrix movies before and then this was your first Matrix experience, you'd probably be like, yeah, that was okay. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure. But...
Yeah. Is this the longest Matrix movie?
Yeah, it was quite long, wasn't it? Jesus, yeah. 2.5 hours?
Yeah, it's really long. The first one is, I think the first one is just under 2 hours or 2 hours. I think Reloaded and Revolutions were both pretty long, though.
Certainly felt the longest.
I could really feel the length of this movie. It was another drag.
Well, did any of us enjoy this film? I haven't really spoken to you about this film, Boon, but did you like it?
I can't say I liked it very much.
So we're all on around the same page, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
Just backtracking a little, I think when we did the preview episode, when we first saw the trailer for Matrix Resurrections, we all pretty much said, yeah, like, we all kind of want to watch it, but we're not expecting too much. I think we all said that, if my memory serves me correctly. I don't know, like, I went in with pretty low expectations, and... it was worse than I could ever have imagined. Yeah, so
okay.
I think it was the worst big budget blockbuster I saw in 2021.
I think I saw worse.
Really? Okay, so...
I've seen worse last year.
Yeah, you've seen Snake Eyes, Tavi, so probably worse, right?
Are we calling Snake Eyes a big budget blockbuster now, are we?
I don't know.
It's supposed to be. That movie was like 180 million, I think.
What the fuck?
Or 100 million?
Well, I have not seen Snake Eyes, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people have not seen Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Henry Golding, but
Would you watch Snake Eyes over Matrix Resurrections, Tavi?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean...
Well, if you only had $25 to your name and you had to choose one...
Oh... That's tough. I mean, this movie, Resurrections, it's really boring. So I wouldn't know if I would want to watch something that makes me angry or makes me sleepy.
So was Snake Eyes even entertaining in the sense that it was so bad it was good?
Nah, I wouldn't say so. But yeah, Resurrections is like... I think there are some good ideas in this movie.
For sure. Yeah, I agree.
Like, the first act, which I dubbed the hipster nightmare act, is like the longest, and it just takes so long to get through. But in the second act, there was some stuff that I actually liked. I was like, oh, okay, like, the movie has passed its rom-com, sitcom, hipster nightmare phase, and it's like actually, doing some world building.
Right.
And I found some of it interesting. It shouldn't really be a spoiler.
No, it's
There's
not.
kind
It's
of
not a
like,
spoiler. I suppose.
Yeah.
Everyone who's seen the original trilogy kind of knows
Yeah.
that they tied it up, right?
Yeah,
In the third movie, but they left it a little open for interpretation. I don't think anyone really expected them to make a fourth one anytime soon after watching the third one. So yeah, you're right. I think they more or less had to come up with a way to rejuvenate the story.
I think anybody that's seen the trailer knows basically that Keanu Reeves is playing the same Neo.
Well, do you want to give like a recap or synopsis of this one, Dan?
Yeah, so Keanu Reeves is in it. He's Thomas Anderson living out his life as a video game designer, but he's not though. He's in some kind of Matrix world, right? A hipster nightmare world, as you describe it, Tavi.
I think everybody knows that he's in the Matrix.
Yeah, and I mean, he's basically he's trying to get out of the Matrix. Again, I guess is the film.
Well, his character is like a depressed.
Yeah, he's got some mental health issues, right? He's a bit sad,
and he sees Neil Patrick Harris a lot.
He knows that something's not quite right, but he can't pinpoint as to what is wrong with him. I guess
hallucinations and like
manic depression.
Yeah, borderline like schizophrenia.
I guess he starts to question whether he's in the Matrix is when he's met by the university graduates that try to rescue him.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, especially the first act, I guess, is very like.
It's, I mean, like, it's very over time, right? Because, like, it's current in the sense that Lana used to be a male.
So she's transitioned, basically.
Yeah. So I think with the whole inclusivity movement and all that kind of stuff going on in Hollywood.
I don't think this movie really touches on that too much.
Yeah. I mean, it touches on a bunch of themes.
There's scenes there, but it's not beating you on the head with it.
It's definitely not in your face, but I think the fact that what has Lana Wachowski done recently besides this movie? Probably not much, right?
Jupiter's Ascending was critically panned.
Was that Channing Tatum?
Yeah, it was Channing Tatum and Mila Kunis.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
I can't say I saw it.
I do like Wachowski movies like The Matrix and Cloud Atlas. Yeah, Cloud Atlas. It's quite creative.
I like Speed Racer.
I haven't seen Speed Racer.
Boon hates Speed Racer. I love it.
Speed Racer is good.
I think it's good.
It's not my favorite. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Matrix is probably their best work, right?
Yeah, The Matrix is like a masterpiece.
It's a big home run to hit, right? It's one of the best sci-fis of all time.
And just the level of care as well that went into not just the first Matrix, but I guess all of the first three Matrixes. You can kind of feel the director's ownership of the films.
They definitely made their stamp on...
They have very, very iconic fight scenes. Like the first one, they revolutionized bullet time, you know, and then there's a Smith versus Neo fight scene. There's the lobby shootout scene, then Reloaded. There's the Burly Brawl, the Highway. They were like breaking ground with
that's
each Matrix.
That's the thing. Like in each of those films, even the third one, you can kind of pick out scenes that stand out, right? As fairly iconic.
The Sentinel battle, I think for me.
Yeah,
I can't say the same for this film.
No, this film lacked a lot of personality, wouldn't you say? Like, I watched this movie twice. The second time felt like it was going on for 6 hours. But there's just the first one had like a really cool soundtrack.
Oh yes,
like, you know, you had like
I wanted to
Rob
talk about this actually. Yeah,
Marilyn Manson, Rage Against the Machine, and you had a really cool accompanying soundtrack that came out with it, like the physical compilation of like songs that influenced the movie. Resurrections just make generic action blockbuster music. There was no personality.
Right.
I think the big issue for Resurrections, because I wrote a bunch of notes and I can see often that I wrote lacks impact. Like everything in this movie does not have any impact. Like the fight scenes. There's
the fan service is just
the fan service. Yeah, there's
sure.
There's no stakes.
There's no threat
When they go in and out of the Matrix, there's just like they're just suddenly in the real world and suddenly in the Matrix. There's no impactful transition.
Totally. Like everything about it is, like you said, just bland. Especially the action direction. I would say it's got some of the worst action direction that I've ever seen in modern movies.
Because I'm watching it, I'm like, why is this so bad? Is it the cinematography? Is it the choreography?
Everything is shot really close to the actors. Like all the action scenes are just really up close and heavily edited. It's just it's not good.
I think what happened is, like, back in the day when the original trilogy came out, Lawrence Fishburne, Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss, they trained their asses off to do all these stunts and like kick ass in the movies, and they did a really awesome job in the original trilogy. And now, like 20 years later, there's no Lawrence Fishburne anymore, and Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss are like in their 50s. So
they can't do the same stuff that they could back in the day.
They did kind of fall back on the corner cutting of close cut scenes, the heavy editing to kind of mask.
I can understand Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss's scenes being edited because they're older. They can't do what they used to be able to do.
You're talking about the other guys.
But what is the excuse with Jessica Henwick and the other guy, Yahya Abdul Mateen, the new Morpheus or whatever?
I don't know.
Because I thought the reason they got these young people in was so that they could, do some decent action still, because they need, to be lithe and stuff to be able to do that. But what's the point in getting them in if they're not going to do the good action,
Yeah.
It might just be the use of CG. Maybe we're too used to it because everything seems a bit floaty, like you see in a lot of these action movies these days.
Yeah, but
I don't know. It's just I just didn't enjoy any of them, and it's like they're not particularly horrible action scenes. I mean, we watched Jiu-Jitsu, Dan.
It's worse than Jiu-Jitsu. I would take a Jiu-Jitsu, that scene where he films it in first person sometimes.
And then he falls over, and then it keeps filming.
I would watch that over this action.
I actually would.
At least it was memorable to some extent,
Memorable's in the wrong way. Yeah.
But I guess the original fight choreographer was not involved in this film.
Do you know Neo doesn't hold a gun throughout the entire movie?
Yes, well, that's wild, man. No guns.
He doesn't need a gun. He's got a big push power.
Where he basically does the South Park equivalent of like psychic battles.
It's like the last Airbender, right?
Oh yeah. It's physically.
Yeah, I don't know, like. I think, like, in our Matrix preview episode, we went on to talk about amazing martial arts movies right after, and now we're talking about Matrix Resurrections. So,
like, with the most subpar action sequences.
Yeah. So, going on, like, what you said about CGI as well, it's just like, when we watched the original Matrix trilogy 20 years ago, whether we loved the sequels or not, we at least left the cinema saying the CGI was pretty damn good. It's in the stunts and the fight choreography. Whereas in this one, I don't know. Like, I can't imagine anybody walking out of this movie that has seen the original trilogy going, that brought something new to the table. I was impressed by that.
Yeah, because all the fight scenes are just lesser versions of what was done in the first movies, right?
Yeah, for sure. Rewatching the original trilogy, the thing that stood out to me the most was actually the fight scenes and how well they've aged. They're like fucking badass, even like 20 years on.
Yeah, if not the CGI, like the execution of the CGI or the way that it's utilized. Like the Burly Brawl, some of it is pretty janky.
Oh, but for sure,
These days
but still, the way they use it and the idea behind, that concept of Neo fighting like just hordes of ancient Smiths, especially for the time, that was huge. It was like something that you will always remember.
But even like the fight scene in the house against all the guards and using all the weapons. How cool is that?
Yeah,
I just remember that now.
The Merovingian really one, yeah? That was like, that was...
that's right, yeah.
That was really cool because that whole action sequence bleeds into the highway chase scene as well.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you need to take a breath after that.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. It's like he goes from fighting with weapons in the mansion, and then Morpheus fights a bunch of ghosts with dreadlocks.
Dude, that was so cool because he's got like
and then he fights an Asian on a truck. Yeah, and, like a lot happens, and Trinity's going against traffic on a motorbike. It's wild. It goes for like a long time as well.
Oh fuck yeah! And like you don't want it to end. You know what I mean? It's just like this is like nuts. Even the non-Neo fight scenes, as you mentioned, like Morpheus, Trinity, when they fight those twin guys, I forget what their names are. Like Morpheus is like slicing them with like this katana and shit, and they're like going into ghost mode and dodging the katana. He's Uziing them, and like
just the ideas, the ideas and the visual representation of the ideas with the technology they had at the time was really good.
I was blown away watching it again, honestly. Like I couldn't believe how well it's aged in terms of the ideas.
But just the pacing of those movies is much better than this one.
Do you think the problem, or a problem, is that since those films, we've seen so much crazy stuff in cinema? They just ran out of good ideas.
Like the only thing that's kind of gotten a lot better since those original trilogies, the original trilogy, is CGI, right? So you expected them to kind of do something at least memorable or really push the envelope in terms of CGI, but it didn't.
But I think even that wouldn't have been enough. Right, because they got that they got that Unreal Engine demo. Have you seen the Unreal Engine demo with Keanu Reeves and Trinity?
I've seen it advertised.
It's like blurring the lines between what's real and what isn't real. Like it's fine as like an exercise in how good CGI is, but it's still not impactful. Like I really feel like it's the ideas that's going to stick in people's minds, because even this level of CGI will probably age at some point.
One of my issues with this movie is how like meta it is with its
there's satire
references
in it for sure, right? I feel like she touches on that Universal was going to make this film even if she wasn't involved, right?
It takes the piss out of cash grab sequels and stuff like that, like quite obviously. But it almost does it so obviously that it's not funny.
It kind of draws attention to herself too much. But like with some of the jokes or some of those meta humor moments, it feels like she's like making fun of her own movies. There's a bit where I guess, I don't know, Discount Morpheus comes in. That actor does an alright job, but
he's alright.
He comes in and then he like makes fun of Morpheus's lines, and I'm like, you know, I mean, that did mean something to people.
Dude, Morpheus is like, okay, we can probably talk about this more in the spoiler section.
We should probably just get into spoiler. I don't really know what else to say without getting into spoilers.
I just wanted to say one thing before we get into spoilers. Like, one good thing about the film is I think Keanu Reeves's and Carrie-Anne Moss's chemistry is a lot stronger than it was in the previous films.
They made it more about the love story, didn't they, in this movie?
Yeah, and like just the connection between them just felt just a bit more genuine. It was the first of these films where I was actually like, oh yeah, Neo and Trinity are actually in love, I guess.
I suppose
in the previous films, I found it more of like a plot device than anything. Like
it was just this is Neo's love interest. Yep. In the other movies, whereas now it's like quite a central part of the plot, isn't it?
I'm not sure if I like that direction though, of the love story. It seems kind of
why is your heart full of so much hate, Tavi?
But I'll give it to Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss for having that. Like, it was good to see them together again, I guess.
It was cool, and like they both haven't really aged too much. Carrie-Anne Moss still looks good.
Yeah, good on him.
Yeah, and we all know that Keanu looks fucking great.
Keanu Reeves,
well, they joke about it because they're like, oh, we wonder why you haven't aged that much. Like, did you get it? Because like people on the internet always say how young Keanu Reeves looks at his age.
Exactly.
He's got a painting that ages for him.
It's like him, it's like Keanu Reeves, Pharrell, you know. All those guys from that late 90s, early 2000s era.
How I hate them. All right.
Yeah.
Should we talk spoilers? Do you have anything else to say before we get into spoilers, guys?
Nah, let's just spoil the shit out of it.
All right, let's just talk spoilers. Yeah. So Neo's in the Matrix, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm watching a movie.
He's in the
called
Matrix, but he's in a new version of the Matrix.
He's in a new version of the Matrix,
Yes.
correct? A new version of the Matrix created by Neil Patrick Harris's The Analyst.
That's kind of one of the plot twists, right? Because you kind of feel like Neil Patrick Harris is not going to be that central a character, right?
Yeah.
He's kind of just Keanu Reeves's therapist.
Yeah.
He does have blue glasses, though, so can't be trusted. But then Bugs has blue hair, so...
That's true. She should have had red hair.
Yeah, I might be part of the minority here, but I think Bugs was actually one of the better characters in the movie.
I would agree with that. I liked Jessica Henwick.
I think her character overall is not very interesting, but I feel like if the movie were to take a big risk, why not have Bubs be a main character instead of because watching the movie again, I felt like Neo and Trinity's story is over. You can bring them back, but maybe through the lens of someone else. Because, like, I don't... what was the actress's name? Jessica
Henwick.
Yeah, I don't think she did a bad job.
I thought she was good. I thought she played the role pretty well, and action scenes that she was involved in, like, I think we've learned that she's not a martial artist, she's not an action movie star.
But the stuff she does at the start is quite good, like where she's shooting down the corridors, doing the flippy flips. Yeah,
I wasn't hating what she was doing, but I know that a lot of people are. Like, a lot of people are saying that she's like the university student, gender studies students with the blue hair, etc., etc. But I don't know. When I was watching this, I was just like, I felt that Bugs was one of the more likable new characters anyway. Like, I don't know. I found him more likable than the new Morpheus.
The new Morpheus just kind of loses his way halfway through the movie. After he has that fight scene with Neo, I think it's to like ignite his spark or something, because they've just basically released Neo from the Matrix.
Yeah, the one that's kind of a homage to the original Morpheus Neo scene.
I mean, the scene looks cool, but the fighting is, as you said, it's just kind of
Then it just ends in a big push.
Yeah. But, like, hear me out. So the original Morpheus and Neo fight scene, it was just in like a dojo full of tatami and like Japanese style martial arts dojo. And then this one, you could tell it was all CGI. It was in the middle of a river. There was like cherry blossoms all around it. It was just like, why do they need to embellish the scene so much to the point where it was just like a tacky version of the original scene with worse fighting, you know what I mean?
Even in a narrative sense, it doesn't make sense because it's within a program, right? So the new Morpheus would only program the stuff that they can actually see, like the interior of the building, right?
Dude, don't get me started on the stuff that didn't make sense, man. Like,
a lot of this movie doesn't make sense.
Like the whole Neil Patrick Harris bullet time thing, that doesn't make fucking sense. Because bullet time is not a power. It's just like it's just like he's so fast, he moves faster than it's just to show how fast Neo is.
I think it was meant to represent the analyst's control of the world that they were in, I guess.
I suppose, but like, it's not like they were watching the Matrix movie. Man, it's dumb.
And why can Agent Smith do it as well? I don't understand why.
Oh man, don't get me started on the new Smith.
He basically walked off a billboard of Abercrombie and Fitch and then turned into Agent Smith.
Yeah, I mean,
to be fair though, Hugo Weaving couldn't be reprised for the role. I think he was busy.
They should have defaked him, to be honest.
Honestly,
I mean, it would have been much better if he was in it, but you know, things happen, like schedule conflicts and all that. But well, I don't know if the remedy to that is to get a new shiny Smith doing a Hugo Weaving impression. You know,
it wasn't even a Hugo Weaving impression.
It was just a dude's own thing.
He didn't talk like Agent Smith. He didn't have the same kind of mannerisms as Agent Smith.
Yeah. It's bad when he reveals himself to be Agent Smith and they have to do like a cut of like Hugo Weaving as Agent Smith to let you know that this is
he's that guy.
That's a bad sign when the movie feels the need to do that. You know?
I think the movie does that too much, using the old footage.
To me, it was a really big misstep because Agent Smith is one of the coolest villains in cinematic history. That's a pretty big statement.
He's iconic.
When you look at a villain, that guy is a badass. Darth Vader, Joker, like these iconic villains. Agent Smith is kind of in the same... I would say Agent Smith is in that conversation too, in the sense that you don't hate the guy. You'd think he's like a cool villain. But whereas in this movie, like this, the boss... now that we're spoiling it, the new Agent Smith is actually Neo's boss at the video game company.
But he doesn't know he's Agent Smith either.
No, he doesn't. He does not know it at the start.
So how is he actually back in the Matrix in this one? Like, I don't remember.
I feel like Neil Patrick Harris chucked him in there or something. I don't know.
Yeah. But then he turns on Neil Patrick Harris at the end. Yeah. Anyways, this conversation kind of surmises why it's so hard to understand. Yeah.
Shall we talk about some positive aspects, I guess? Because Tavi, you mentioned that there was some cool ideas in the film.
Yeah. So after they retrieve Neo from the Matrix, they go to the new city because Zion is basically obsolete now. So they go to Io, which is like the new city post Neo's revolution. Yeah. And it's shown to be like, much less of a dystopia. And you see some sentient like machines have actually helped the humans out. And I thought that idea was really cool. Like once Neo had done his revolution, some AI machines or digital sentients as they call them in the movie have chosen to work with the humans. And there's a brief glimpse of machine versus machine wars because there was like politics between the machines. And then you see that the machines are working together with the humans to like synthesize like fruits and stuff.
Strawberries,
and that's really cool. Yeah, like, there's a world out there to be explored.
Yeah, it's good. I like how they didn't kind of just reset everything, like what Neo did in the first three movies actually led to something. Even though we didn't get to see much of it, it did lead to like, a bit of peace and then a kind of revolution within the machines. And like the idea of freeing programs and them coming into the real world is like in like a physical form is just a really cool idea. Yeah,
it's also like quite poignant in the sense that it mirrors somewhat what's going on right now with the pandemic and stuff like that. The lack of resources, and then everybody turns on each other. That was a cool way to kind of nod to the current state of affairs. Whereas a lot of the movie is not really as subtle.
Well, like we see a return of another character, which is Niobe. Is it still Jada Pinkett Smith?
It is.
Yes,
with
it
a bunch
is.
of prosthetics.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, she says a line where she talks about, I'm not sure if it's her character or the other one that's made to look like the Oracle. I think her name is Alice or something. Anyway, but she says like, we realized that this world couldn't be built with humans on their own. It was built with humans and machines. So it's kind of like coming to an understanding that you can just work
together.
Yeah, you can work together. Because the trilogy is very heavily humans versus machines.
They're like literally like trying to hide from the machines because they know the machines will wipe out their entire race, which is quite dark and quite Armageddon-like.
Yeah, it's still somewhat hopeful, I guess. And I was like, okay, so the movie, at that point, I messaged Dan as well. I said, okay, this movie might not be so bad because I thought they were going to enter like a pretty interesting setup. But after that, the third act is like, okay, I want to go get Trinity out of the Matrix. And the motivation for the crew to do it is not there, or I may have missed it because I was like, my eyes were glazing over. But like, because Bugs basically says, "Oh yeah, we blew our one chance to get you out."
Yeah.
And then it's like, "Oh, all right."
It was like, we got you out, so we can get her out as well. You know.
Yeah, and then
that's
like,
right. Yeah.
Neo gets imprisoned again, and then he's like in his, I don't know, jail cell, and then Morpheus comes to him in like the form of like, I don't know, digital dust or whatever. And he says like, "Oh, so we're ready to go. So do you want to stay here?" And it's like, okay. So like, I don't know what the motivation was for the crew to help him get Trinity out again, because their purpose was to get Neo out. But then it goes into the third act, and then it turns into the Christopher Nolan heist segment, because there's just so much explaining, there's so much exposition, and I was just like, oh fuck, man, like I was, that's why it felt like I was watching a 6-hour movie. I'm like, man,
it's long. Like, it's long. I think when I watched it with Nat, my partner, multiple times we looked at each other. We were like, "Is this finishing soon?" You know what I mean? Like that was the vibe. The entire, I don't know, an hour in.
It's so long.
I think it's because the visuals were not very good either. Like you said, the part where they go to Io is pretty cool. Like the idea of it is cool, but I think
the visuals are pretty lackluster.
It's very much the same as Zion. You know, like they've got a sky, and they're not doing a sweaty cave rave, I guess. But it's still like
the cave rave was so fucking weird, man. In the original, it was weird.
But you remember it though.
Yeah, exactly. It was that scene where like it's just like they're having this giant like rainbow serpent orgy.
Yeah, it's gross.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what happens.
Disgusting. But yeah, Io just looks bland. It's just metal gangways, you know, and fog, I guess. And like, yeah, again, the ideas were all good. Like the representation of the programs in the real world, it is just like dust. It's like in the Transformer films when they got too lazy to do the transforming animations, they just did dust. That's what it is.
Yeah. Do you think, say that they had a chance to do Matrix Resurrections again, and they just made it about like this? They didn't make it about the actual quote unquote Matrix. Most of the movie was set in the quote-unquote real world where they are, and they centered the plot around, you know, the fight between robots and humans and the alliances and, you know, the byplay between the robots and the humans that they show off a little bit in the movie. Do you think that people would have liked that? Because, I mean, like, that's clearly one of the cool ideas in this movie. But making a whole movie about it, people will be like, "Where the fuck is like Agent Smith
with the kung fu?"
Yeah. So
that's the thing. Like you really have to take the risk or not.
I think
what people want to see, because like, you know, I was talking about before, like, why not make the movie like around Bugs? And executive would say people want to see fucking Neo, not Bugs. You know?
Yeah, and I mean, like, if they made Bugs the main character, Tavi, I can guarantee this. If they made Bugs the main character, like this podcast would have like 3 times the amount of.
I mean, you never know, man. Like, if you have good writers, you can do it. Like, I mean, it doesn't need to be Bugs. It could be someone. Anyone,
I don't know, man.
Really.
Like, I feel like every time they introduce a character that's kind of like
a bit different from
a bit different from the rest, blue hair, like university student style, as you mentioned.
But I mean,
like people
like,
go, "Oh man, what the fuck? It's a virtue signaling, etc.,
It's not always that way. Like Arcane, like, has all these aesthetics, and Arcane is one of the most critically acclaimed shows of last.
Yeah, but I think it's
year.
the expectation of fans is what's holding it back in a way.
Admittedly, I'd probably be like, I want to see Neo, like, I want to see, but then like watching the story
no
unfold,
one expected that much, right? Everyone's just like, like, we hope it's like entertaining, right? Like, all 3 of us were like, we hope it's somewhat entertaining, like in the preview.
I mean, you probably could have included that if you didn't spend the first 40 minutes in hipster hell, you know. Like, just cut some of that down and just
I
like Bugs, alright.
Get to the damn, like, real world, and then cut back in between the Matrix.
Yeah, sure.
Because they kind of were doing that already with the train to Busan sequence.
That was weird.
Sequence.
That was weird.
Yeah,
I gotta admit.
and the swarm mode, and then he's like, they're basically like shotgunning schoolgirls out the window.
Oh man, it's terrible. If you think about like the agents in the original trilogy are like maybe not so much in Revolutions, but like they're such a big threat throughout the series.
Oh, dude, they're like literally Neo's Vegeta, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, they're just this constant presence that like any one of them could fucking kill you at any point, right? But like swarm mode is just nothing, right? It's just like
they're just rabbit. It's like zombies, right? Zombie apocalypse.
Well, they're zombies, and then the SWAT officers have like stormtrooper syndrome. They're just like, I just can't hit my target.
Yeah, whereas like Agent Smith actually knows how to fight, right? Agent Smith knows how to fuck people up.
None of the crew members die in this movie.
Dude,
no one. There's no stakes at all.
To be honest, though, if any of them did die, I wouldn't have given a shit because I didn't know any of them. You know,
it's not about like, it would be good if you did give a shit, but like, if you're not going to use them as character development, use their deaths as a form of stakes. Like, I mean, the SWAT team is just, I just can't shoot them. They're like right in front of me, but I can't do it.
Yeah, dude.
Just,
the whole movie, I was just like, why aren't they hitting this person? They're like spraying him with bullets, and then somehow they're missing him. Like, what the hell?
When the Merovingian comes back and is very like Scooby-Doo cartoon villainy, and then he fights the exiles. They fight those exiled programs. Yeah. It kind of seems like, these guys are kind of dangerous.
No, but they're they're kind of lame. They're kind of really
so lame. They look like B-grade villains from a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film.
Yeah, I didn't get that. I didn't get that at all.
None of them killed any of the crew members. So it's just like, okay. And then and basically the Merovingians, I'll be back next time, or whatever kind of vibe.
But, in the original trilogy, the crew of I think it's the Nebuchadnezzar.
The Nebuchadnezzar,
yeah. Some of them die, yeah.
Quite a lot of them die.
Yeah, a lot of them die. And, like, because you've seen them, like, throughout because it's a trilogy, you've built kind of like a affinity.
No, but they all die in the first movie, though.
Do they?
Most of them die in the first movie. But still, like, the characters are developed much more than any of the characters in this film.
You've seen them in all
so you actually
movies.
care when they die.
Care. And they're more likable.
I mean, only one of them nearly dies in the swarm mode in the final scene.
Did any of them die? I wouldn't be able to tell you if any of them dies.
Because, I remember Bugs was like, oh my god, and says person's name, and then she just rescues them, and then that's it. It's like, okay, cool. Thanks, man. It's like, no problem.
I thought one of them would die for sure, like to make like a heartfelt scene where it's like one of the crew members has died. Like I remember like feeling quite upset in the original trilogy when the crew members died.
Yeah. Well, you're supposed to.
Whereas in this one, no one dies.
I like how like 70 years have passed or whatever. Yeah. But they're still styling themselves like they were in the original Matrix.
Come on, man. They're not in the fight. They're in Zion still, technically.
I like it. I like how they've like kind of looked up to Neo so much that they're still kind of styling themselves like in that way. One guy just makes himself his hair and his beard a bit blonder in the Matrix. Like a little bit blonder.
Yeah. The Scottish guy, yeah?
Yeah. It's silly.
I didn't remember there was a Scottish guy.
No, because then none of them have an identity, and it's bad.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess it's one of the crises of this movie.
Maybe they tried to pack in too much stuff. Like you said, they spent a bit too much time in the... Like, I feel like if they had enough... If they were sure that they were going to make sequels, they probably could have timed it a bit better, and it would have had they could have expanded on the good ideas a bit more. But because they're not sure if they're going to get a sequel, so they try to fit all their ideas into one movie. So they kind of just brush over the new Matrix. They kind of just brush over all the fight scenes. They kind of just brush over Neo and Trinity's relationship. So it just ends up like with all these ideas that just amount to nothing. Really.
Yeah, I think that's the widespread criticism, really, of the whole movie, right? It just doesn't really give us anything that we were yearning for in terms of a fourth installment of The Matrix. After the
It doesn't continue the story, really.
Yeah, it's not like people were in love with the last two movies that we saw, but they were happy to, you know,
Just
it's a
leave it,
trilogy.
yeah.
Let's just leave it. So when people found out that this fourth one was coming out, they were like, okay, cool. Maybe it's a chance to rewrite the quote-unquote wrongs that happened in the last two movies. But it actually didn't. It in many ways, it like shat on the original trilogy even more.
As we were saying before, the movie was lacking in personality, and you wanted to mention something about the music, Boon. I have my issues with the music just being bland and just
Tell me about it, man.
I don't remember any track in this movie except for that like slight Matrix trumpet that they use in songs. But that's it. That's all I can remember.
In the original trilogy, every fight scene is accompanied by an amazing soundtrack, and they're all slightly different in terms of like their style. The lobby scene from the first movie, which is like an iconic kind of soundtrack. Yeah, like everybody knows it's synonymous with The Matrix. Whereas when I rewatched the original trilogy, every fight scene kind of had different styles of music for each fight scene. Whereas this one, I don't remember any of the music at all. Whereas that music was kind of the first thing I noticed. Well, one of the first things I noticed with the original trilogy. I'm like, man, the soundtrack is fucking badass. Whereas this one, I wasn't thinking about the soundtrack at all. I was thinking about when can I do something else?
Sure.
Man, how crap is the fucking the credits song?
Oh,
a cover of Rage Against the Machine. This is what I've written here. I've written the Rage Against the Machine cover is awful. It lacks impact. Sounds like a prepubescent girl trying to record in her room at night while trying not to wake her parents up.
Don't get me started on the wake up, the brass version of Wake Up. Yeah. Don't get me started because, as the credits were playing,
I want to get you started.
Well, okay. As the credits were playing, Nat's my partner. She'd already tuned out. So she was like in the kitchen, like doing some. That's in the kitchen doing her own thing.
So you sent her back to the kitchen. Is what you're saying.
She was doing something. She was doing something else, and then she was like, "What the fuck's going on with this music? It's terrible." And she wasn't even watching it. And I'm just like, Nat, this is like "Wake Up" by Rage Against the Machine. Like, don't you know this song? But in my head, I'm like, this is actually really bad. Like, this remix is like really terrible. Like, I shouldn't even be questioning her because it actually is bad.
Memorable for the wrong reasons, maybe.
Having Rage Against the Machine at the end of the first movie and the second movie, were they at the end of the third movie as well? I don't remember. I
don't know. I've only seen the Revolutions once.
Yeah, I don't think they were at the end of the third movie. I could be wrong, but Come Like a Bomb was on in the second movie during the credits, and I was like, man, this is sick.
Yeah, how pumped do you get just listen to that, man?
Dude,
Sick.
Dude, like, it's kind of everything in the movie transferred to the end credits in a song.
The song is just like, oh yeah, you know, you're trying to get with it. It's like, okay.
It really shows the comparative level of care that went into this film. I feel like the music choices in the first three films were just like very meticulous, I guess. It was like the perfect song to play for whatever's happening on screen.
They may have had a budget though, right? Like they may have composed a lot of the soundtrack to fit the specific scenes. I think they may have. Yeah. Whereas in this movie,
in the first one, or
well, I remember so like for example, in we're backtracking again to the original trilogy. It's hard to when you're talking about resurrections, but in the second one, Reloaded, when Neo fights Seraph, there's this really cool kind of like gong soundtrack.
It's like a kung fu film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, this is crazy. Whereas like in the new movie, I can't remember a single fight scene, let alone the soundtrack behind it.
Yeah, and it's not just the soundtrack as well. Like I could probably give you a vague like description of what happens in each of the fight scenes in the first three Matrix films.
Yeah,
like,
there's iconic
like
kind of like
remember,
moves, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I think because in the first three films, like the Wachowskis were very meticulous about the fight scenes, especially because like they use like a comic book style like storyboarding technique to like
True.
to go through all the fight scenes. But this film, like, she didn't do that.
It's also the choreographer, right? They didn't bring in the
they didn't have the
person.
original. They didn't have Yuan Wu Ping for this one.
It's got to mean something, right?
Who
sure.
did the choreography for Resurrections?
Yeah, I looked it up, and I don't know. Like, probably
It was
like
Lana.
probably no one.
I'm gonna have a quick look at it on Google.
I've seen this shit before. Just do this.
They just told the actors to just go with it. I guess.
That's not, well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like every fight scene in the original trilogy kind of has something memorable about it, right?
Yeah, you remember when Neo does that little throat tap on Agent Smith, and he's like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the throat tap is like, it's iconic at this point.
Yeah.
The burly brawl where he like knocks the Agent Smiths into each other, and there's a bowling ball, sound effect, and it's just like
he uses the stick for a bit of it.
It's just like there's so much, and even in Revolutions, even when they punch each other and they both go flying, Dragon Ball Z style, that's memorable because we hadn't really seen that in movies up until that point.
Right.
I was just looking for the choreographer. Apparently, it's the John Wick guy who did it. Chad Stahelski, who plays Chad in the movie.
Right, yeah.
So I guess he cameos as. I was like, really?
Stuntman, right? Keanu Reeves' main stuntman or whatever.
Yeah, no, he did. He co-directed the first John Wick
Sure.
with David Lynch.
They were more John Wickian than like, you know, the previous Matrixes.
Yeah.
But they were crap, even compared to John Wick.
No, but the John Wick movies are awesome because there's the fight choreography plus the visceral violence of John Wick killing people. You know what I mean? Whereas in this one, it's kind of just like no blood. It's kind of got the same comic booky, like PG-rated violence of the first films without the killing.
The film is R-rated in America. I don't know why they didn't commit to a higher level of violence because, you were saying the fight scenes are very, Marvel comic booky. You don't see very much blood.
It might have been jarring for a Matrix sequel.
But
the other movies are pretty violent. Like Neo gets shot up and stuff. They're not like gory violence. But then the last scene of the movie, like Trinity kicks Neil Patrick Harris's jaw and slits his throat, and it's like
That's
slightly
right.
graphic. I'm like, okay, like.
Where was this for the whole
what
film?
do you want to be?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
it's weird.
And I mean, like, they've got the guy from John Wick to do the choreography. The reason why people love John Wick is because, like, there's that shock factor of him snapping somebody's neck or, like, stabbing them in the jugular, you know what I mean? That's what makes it's the kind of the exclamation point on the martial arts.
And it might not be the fault of the choreography as well. Like, the choreography might be fine if we could actually see what they're doing, you know? But the way it's cut together, it's...
Like, Trinity does do the scorpion kick, but it's obviously not her.
That part actually gave me chills. That was the only part of the film where I felt something was when she's like, my name is Trinity, and she like scorpion kicks her husband. I was like, yeah, that's good.
But it's obviously not her, right? Like, because in the original movies, like she'd been training her ass off to do that scorpion kick, and she does it. And
it's fine though. She's like 50, right?
but she's the one. She's the new one, right?
So, well, they're both the one, aren't they? I don't know.
She can do whatever the fuck she wants, man. She's the one, man.
Well, with that actual plot line, because there's that Indian lady who comes back,
the Oracle's
and
daughter?
she's like basically, that's it, or
It's the
someone.
program
I
that Neo meets in the subway station in
correct,
one of the
yes.
films.
Yes.
The one that
Yeah,
makes the
yeah.
rainbow at the end of the film.
That's the one.
Like when they're doing like the heist movie part, and she's explaining, actually, I don't know if it's her, but it's Neil Patrick Harris, but explaining that they're both the one, but it's like they're longing for each other that powers the Matrix.
Sure.
I'm like, What? Like, that's like one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
It was a bit corny, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's why I was like, you already had like a cool setup for like midway through.
Well, I mean, the first couple of Matrices had this running theme of like the power of love kind of thing.
Yeah,
like,
they did, but it wasn't the focus, really, was it?
Well, at the climax of the films, like when Neo gets shot in the first film, Trinity brings him back to life with the power of love.
It's true.
When Trinity gets shot and falls out of a building in the second one, Neo brings her back with the power of love. So,
Yeah, okay.
But that's just the third movie, though, right? And the third movie's kind of the one that everybody really didn't like. And, like, they kind of rehash that concept, that love idea in this one, too, where their love was kind of the most important thing in the universe. So...
I wanted to talk a bit about the fan service. So, like,
yeah, sure.
We've been talking a lot about, like, the previous Matrix films. And I think, you know, the strength or a strength of this Matrix film could have been the fact it has so many fans looking forward to it, or like at least interested to see it. So it could have been one of those films that kind of coasted on, you know, fan service alone. But like the way they did the fan service was really bad as well. Like
they literally showed like clips from the original movies. Like, what the fuck?
There's like a way to do fan service that kind of builds up the tension in the audience, and then when they show, you know, what it is that they're showing, you know, it should get a reaction from the audience. And like I've got a couple of bits in this film that could have been like that. Like the part where Neo stops bullets for the first time, or the part where the Merovingian shows up, or the part where Niobe is revealed. All of these moments, they kind of just happen. You know, there's like
actually, that's very true.
There's no build up to them at all.
As you know, going back to the martial arts, like the thing that I was really perplexed by was when he kind of learned how to fight out of nowhere. Like, and then he was just like, I still know Kung Fu. Like halfway, like 3/4 of the way through the movie, like you knew he could fight by that point. Yeah. But like, there was kind of like no like homage in the sense that like that light bulb moment where he realized he was the one again.
But again, it just lacks impact. Even when he escapes the Matrix, I think it's after the train to Busan sequence, and then he just goes through the window, and then he's just suddenly in the real world. There's no like, is that okay, and then he gets rescued. You know, it's just, and even when they leave the. After they do the weathering with you moment.
What was the weathering with you moment?
So basically when Trinity learns to fly, it's like the exact same shot. Because I had like,
you mentioned that like it was a very Makoto Shinkai kind of.
Yeah, because it's like a love story, and Neo is basically going Hina, but to like Trinity instead and running. Man. So I felt like, it's
that
Makoto
makes
Shinkai's. But after the weathering with you moment at the end, they just go, okay, let's go, and they're just suddenly back in the ship. Like you don't see where they've like gone through a portal or whatever.
Sure,
you know, it's just like we're here now. It's like, I mean, like you can cut the fat and stuff, but at least give it some impact, you know. There's just as you said, Dad, everything significant that happens just happens. Like Niobe, hi, I'm Niobe. I can stop bullets.
There was no reaction from the audience at any point in the film when I was in the cinema, except for the part where Neo tries to fly and it doesn't work, and people kind of chuckled.
Yeah, people laughed. Yeah, okay.
But like aside from that, there was just no reaction. And I had just come off from watching like Spider-Man No Way Home as well, which is full of fan service, but it's done well, you know. So that when it happens,
I guess the Marvel universe has a lot of fan service to draw on.
It's a film that does fan service well, and it's fun to watch in the cinema.
When fan service is done well, a movie can kind of rely on it and like lean on it a bit as a crutch. But when it's done poorly, there's just like it just falls flat.
It's just nothing.
The fan service of this movie, it did nothing but remind us of how shit this movie is compared to the original trilogy. Because like they literally showed scenes from the original trilogy, and then you're like, man,
I really wish Lawrence Fishburne was here.
Maybe I should turn this shit off and put like that DVD of The Matrix in and watch it again.
Yeah. I feel like Lana didn't really want to do it, but maybe if her signaling is true, she kind of was just forced to do it because Warner Brothers was going to go ahead. And so she's like, no, this is my project. So she maybe just cooked up a story.
Sure.
And you got to like work to deadlines and stuff. So this is what she's come up with.
Dude, there's no deadlines when COVID's around, right? It's just like, we're just delayed by COVID.
I guess budgetary restrictions too would have been a factor. It's not a strong franchise, and the Wachowskis have lost a bit of favor in Hollywood as well. So I feel like this is probably the only movie that Universal would let any of the Wachowskis do, really.
I suppose so, yeah. I don't know.
But still, she should care about it a little bit.
I think people were looking forward to this movie, man. Like legitimately.
Maybe she did care about it, and maybe this is just... She just couldn't come up with a good movie. Like, you never know. Like,
do you think we just don't get it? Do you think, like, maybe we'll look back on this movie in another 5 years and be like, oh, actually, there's themes in this and stuff that we didn't see the first time around?
It's above us. It's like Van Gogh. Like, when Lana Wachowski dies, like, this movie will suddenly become, like,
a masterpiece.
Masterpiece, exactly, yeah.
Because, like, the first couple, I mean, the Matrix Revolutions and Matrix Reloaded, they weren't as well received as the first Matrix film. But I think they've gotten a bit more popular with time. I think people have started to appreciate them a bit more. So I was wondering, maybe like the same thing could happen with this film, but I can't see how. Like, even as satire, it doesn't really work.
We touched on this before, like the other two Matrix films, the subsequential sequels after the original, they brought a lot of new elements to cinema in the sense that, like, they leveled up the action. Because the original Matrix, it had awesome action sequences, but Reloaded really stepped it up. In terms of the belly brawl scene, they literally built a highway to film that highway scene.
Yeah.
And and then in the third one, they did all that Dragon Ball Z style one-on-one fight scene kind of stuff that we had never seen before in cinema either. So whether the stories were shit house, you didn't like them, you still appreciated them. The new shit they brought in terms of, special effects and martial arts choreography, etc.
On you talking about the action sequences, I think one last point I wanted to bring about this movie is like, because I'm actually running out of shit to say. When Trinity like kicks Chad and then they start like the SWAT. Like, I couldn't help but feel like it's the music video for Fun's We Are Young, because it's like they do all the slow-mo and all I can hear in my head. It's like, we are young.
Yeah, it's just like the super slow-mo for like a dramatic moment, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I've got to say about this movie, really.
That's the exclamation point on this podcast.
I mean, I don't know, should we give it a rating also or something?
Yeah. Dan, you first, man.
When I came out of the cinema, I was like, that was not very good, but at least it wasn't devastating. But the more I think about it, the more like upset I get about it. Yeah. So, yeah, probably worst movie of this year. In hindsight.
That's a big call. Yeah.
But you guys have seen Snake Eyes. I have not.
I haven't seen Snake Eyes.
Dan hasn't seen Snake Eyes.
You haven't seen Snake Eyes? Okay.
No. I've seen Fast 9, though.
I think Dan and I should do a watch party for Snake Eyes, and maybe we can do a head-to-head with Matrix and Snake Eyes.
Just a comparison.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But you actually, Tommy, you said something interesting, or something that I found interesting before we recorded, is that Space Jam is basically the Matrix.
That's right. Space Jam is basically
do you want to elaborate on that?
Go on.
Oh, fuck. I mean, there's a lot of nods to the Matrix in that movie, and both movies both involve an AI supervillain.
Seeing as they're both Warner Brothers properties, do you think the Matrix Resurrections could be set in the same universe as Space Jam?
It could, honestly.
Let me remind you, though, that Space Jam, when it came out, was critically panned, where The Matrix is considered one of the greatest sci-fi movies of all time, universally.
Well, maybe with their powers combined, they could make a pretty good crossover.
Maybe they should have introduced like the Monstars into The Matrix Resurrection.
Yeah.
Put LeBron James in there.
It's like, you ain't Neo, you're just some wannabe. Be gone, wannabe. Be gone.
Space Jam 2 is a worse movie, but I would watch Space Jam 2 again after watching this movie.
Whoa, I have not seen Space Jam 2.
What I can say is, for me, it's one of those so bad it's good movies.
Okay, fair enough.
They have similar themes, right? Like the whole algorithm creating media kind of vibe.
They're the same movie, man. But yeah, aside from our conspiracy theories of Space Jam 2 and The Matrix, what do you give this movie, Boon?
I'm going to give it 2 out of 10.
Yeah, that's fair.
In the sense that, look, a lot of people will probably give Revolutions like a 5 or 4 out of 10. So this has to be a 2 out of 10 if you're doing that.
Because
Right?
it's worse than Revolution.
So, yeah.
It's definitely the worst Matrix film.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and I think
by quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
To me, the most disappointing thing was it shat on all of the things that I loved about the original trilogy. I think die-hard devotees of The Matrix, they will probably find that unforgivable, right? I can't say that I'm a die-hard devotee, but I enjoyed the first 2 movies a lot, and I didn't mind the third one, even though I knew people hated it, similarly to the new Star Wars trilogy. But let's not go into that. But a lot of people, really hated the third Matrix, but I was just like, I enjoyed the Dragon Ball Z fight scenes. Yeah. Because, we'd never seen that before, but literally, I don't know, this did not even reach the same stratosphere as the third movie.
Nah.
Even if you can call the third movie if the third movie did not reach any stratosphere. But,
If you wanna watch a Matrix movie that has impact, just watch Space Jam 2.
LeBron James technically is sucked into some form of the Matrix.
Yeah, that's a plot.
Whoa, I know.
And also, there's a character called Bugs in it. So,
that's so true.
Same movie.
Yeah. Whoa. I know how to shoot threes.
I'd give this movie a go watch Dude instead out of 10. Or go watch Space Jam 2 instead.
Yeah, honestly,
it's pretty bad.
Go watch Dune.
Go watch Dude.
Would you guys watch another Matrix film?
That is a great question. Yes.
I probably would.
Yeah, I think I would, because I like the concept of the Matrix. I like what it did for sci-fi cinema. I like what it did for martial arts cinema. I like how it brought so many new facets to the table when it came out. So much wow factor. So, the nostalgic part of me will always kind of go back to watching another Matrix. Maybe I'm just I'm sentimental in that sense, but I would.
Yeah, for sure. This is a property that we've grown up with, and a property that we love. I think that's why it stings so much that this movie was not even terrible. It was just lackluster. That's what hurts the most for me, anyway. I think, but I would give him another chance, and if they did make another one, I guess they'd have another chance to rewrite what happened in this film to make it better.
At least it followed a vision to the original, unlike some other bad movies I've seen this year, which I won't mention.
Well, they followed the vision of the original, but I don't know. This might be an unpopular opinion, but maybe they should have gone OTT in a similar vein to say the Fast franchise. Because, the Fast franchise has not really stuck to the plot of the original kind of, universe at all.
Sure. But are they good
No, but that's the thing. Like,
Do you want a franchise to keep going, or do you want it to be good?
but people don't give a
I
shit,
guess.
right? Like, people don't give a shit when it comes to Fast. Like, even when they stopped doing the Fast movies, people were like, man, I loved watching the original Fast movies. People will still say that, right?
All right, well, before we get onto the Fast and Furious, which is, to me, like a pretty shit franchise, we should probably wrap this one up.
All right.
I think we've said all we can.
Guys, what did you think of the latest Matrix film? Did you enjoy it on any level? Do you think it succeeded as a Matrix sequel? Or do you think it succeeded as satire on the movie industry in general? Have you not seen it yet? And will you watch it after listening to this? Pretty unlikely, but let us know. You can get in touch with us at twoasianblokes@gmail.com, or you can join our Facebook group and be part of the conversation. Thank you very much to Boon for joining us.
No worries. Like, I love coming on this podcast.
Yeah, there'll be more of you when the time comes.
Yes,
we'll light the Boon signal.
Oh, yeah. What is the Boon signal? Like, is it a bat?
It's a dick.
It's a dick burger.
It's a dick burger. Okay, fair enough.
Dick burger.
It must be a pretty big signal in that case. Okay, this is
good.
This podcast.
All right,
is
everybody. Yeah, thank you for listening, guys. As always, until next time. Bye bye.
Yeah. I'm gonna entrap Risky on this. Look forward to listening to a wake up rendition that's better than the Resurrections one.
Good luck with that, Risky. It's a tough act to follow.
Yeah, he might need to blow into like a party popper or something. Yeah, I don't know. Or like maybe fart the notes. I don't know. Yeah.
I think anything he makes would be better than what we got.
Yeah, I don't know. He could literally.
Try again with it.
I don't know. He could string up his gooch and like play the notes, and it would be better.
That would be impressive.
Let's wrap this one up. Okay, see you later, everyone.
Bye bye, guys.
See you guys.